doctors that candidates were not going to be allowed to debate, social credit candidates, other social creditors. And following the lead, of course, of Mr. Van der Zalm, the Premier, in refusing to debate with Skelly. Now, that's understandable. But I'm grateful to Mr. Van der Zalm today for his explanation as to why they're not going to be allowed to debate. It's because 45 of the social credit candidates are so inexperienced they don't know nothing about anything. Point number one. Point number two. Mr. Van der Zalm faces the biggest test of his campaign promises and attitudes this very evening, this very moment, in the Robson Square offices of the government. It was easy enough for Bill to come into office and throw $50 million bucks at the BCGEU and settle that one. It was just as easy for him to tell the hospital labour relations people and the nurses there would be more money on the table. But he can't go into the IWA or into the big forest companies, Mac Blow, Weyerhaeuser, the rest of them, Crown Forest and Weldwood, and throw money at them, our money, to settle this very bitter and dangerous strike in the IWA. The situation right now is that Monroe of the IWA takes the Hutchin report, which said that the IWA is entitled not to contract out. They take that as gospel, right? The big companies, you take it from me, are determined not to give in as of this moment in contracting out. They feel the only way they can remain competitive is if they can whittle away at the IWA bargaining unit memberships and contract out certain jobs. If Van der Zalm can get Ray Smith and the big boys in the coastal forest industry and the interior to step back on contracting out, and he gets them back to work, it will be a great feat. And while I'm not about to endorse anything Van der Zalm does, because I'm strictly non-partisan in the middle as of this moment, it would decimate NDP support in IWA writings. You may know by the start of the news hour whether or not Van der Zalm has clubbed the big companies over the head. Wait and see. First, for the rundown.
Tonight, Robert Gardner is making his first bid in politics for social credit in Vancouver Centre. He meets Doug Sandberg, who's running for the NDP in Richmond against Premier Bill Van der Zalm. But first, John Reynolds, social credit candidate for West Vancouver-Howe Sound, meets Art Kube. He's president of the BC Federation of Labour and NDP candidate in Richmond.
Here are two experienced candidates, experienced political candidates who are prepared to fight it out. I shall introduce first Art Kube, former, are you still in the BC Fed?
Well, I'm going to be finished in about 6 weeks' time.
Because the pressures were beginning to show, you decided to quit. The job got too tough for you. And right. So now instead you're taking the easy job of fighting against Van der Zalm.
Well, you know.
Can I look at you as Mr. Solidarity, the man who wanted the general strike in BC and who was very down on Monroe for the Kelowna Accord?
Well, you can look at me as Mr. Solidarity, but I'm not so sure that I was ever down on Monroe, nor did I ever advocate a general strike.
Well, now look at this man over here, John Reynolds. You were in the snit when Van der Zalm appointed his new cabinet. You didn't even turn up at the caucus because you didn't get a position.
Jack, that's not true.
What is the truth?
Jack, Bill reduced the size of the cabinet, which I support. And he only had 3 spots open, and any leader would have given those to the 3 people who supported him from the start, and he did. And I was away because my son was up from Purdue University on vacation. I told the Premier he was there. We went on a fishing trip. He knew what was going on. In fact, when somebody asked him where I was, I think he's halfway between here and Alaska right now.
Mind you, Bennett would never put you in the cabinet either.
Well, who said I wanted to be in his cabinet?
Do you want to be in the cabinet or not?
Sure, I'd love to be in the cabinet in this government now.
But is it not a fact that social credit have been kind of wary of you because of your outspoken views and actions?
I don't think so. I think I get along very well with the present Premier, with my colleagues there.
You're the guy that wants to open up big-time gambling in British Columbia.
No, I didn't say that. I said I supported the gambling that we had in this province run by the charities and did not approve of the actions taken that reduced the size of the bets from $5 down to $2. For instance, my constituents in Whistler, the last time I did a poll, aren't in favor of a gambling casino in Whistler, and I would support their wishes.
You're attacking Grace McCarthy, who cut it from $5 to $2 in bingo.
I made my position pretty clear during the leadership campaign that I didn't agree with that position.
All right. What's wrong with social credit? Why? I mean, they're going to win 50 seats, you know that, but give them a fight. Why should they be thrown out?
Well, I'm not so sure they're going to win 50 seats, and I think the reason they should be thrown out is because of the action of the last 5 years. We have massive unemployment in this province. We have a massive provincial debt in this province. We have the elimination of a great number of important social programs, like, for instance, child abuse teams, the abolishment of the Human Rights Commission, the Human Rights Branch, the abolishment of the Rentman's Office, cutbacks in medical services. We have deterrent fees, and now we have a premier running around who says, all those things, I didn't do them. I recall Bill Vandersand when he was a cabinet minister and human resources, when he was Minister of Municipal Affairs, when he was Minister of Education. In all these instances, he was a massive centralist. He cut back on educational expenditures, and he cut back on some very vital services and pensions on disabled and handicapped people.
An inhuman man following another inhuman government of Bill Bennett's. Is that right?
Yes. But
what do you say to that, John?
Jack, it's funny listening to Art here. You know, they've been talking about these same things. I can remember Art leading the Solidarity. They were against what this government did. They were against Expo. They were against SkyTrain. They were against Convention Centre. The NDP are against everything in this province. They haven't changed. Art himself, you know, is at odds with his leader. He went and visited the Premier and told him he should increase income taxes in this province to help social services. And yet the Premier of this province at the time and the Finance Minister said that wasn't necessary. His own leader right now says that's not something that should be done.
If my children are in danger to be sexually abused by somebody, I'm prepared to pay the extra money to make sure that my children are protected. I'm prepared to pay the extra money to make sure that my children get a proper education, because that is the future for them. That's the future for this province.
Art Kube, you're spouting the same NDP line.
No,
the children in this province aren't being abused any more than any other province in this country. Why don't you just
that is the line of every decent British Columbian who is concerned about the future of this province.
Slow down, Art. Let somebody else get a word. I've got 7 children. I'm as concerned about my children being sexually abused, about their education, but I would suggest to you that it's fat cat labor leaders like yourself that don't understand what's going on in this country. Hang on a second, let me finish.
I'm telling you
700,
that you
800
can
jobs
afford,
in the NIMO.
You can
Jack,
afford to have a child care worker. You can afford to put your kids into private
NDP
schools.
Nonsense.
But I'm not so sure that the majority of working people in this province can afford to do that.
You were accusing him of wiping out 700 or 800 jobs in the NIMO.
People wanted to work there. The unions wouldn't let it happen. Let me finish here now. Let me talk about the NDP policies.
You're lying.
Let him finish it, and then you can call him a liar.
You know, the NDP want to just talk this line, but they're against everything. 700, 800 jobs in an IMO down the tubes because you don't understand what your workers want in this province. You're going to find out on election day. You're going to find out on election day, Art Kube, when the workers vote for Bill Vandersand.
Just a moment, please.
Gentlemen. Which basically said that we were right on that particular position, and that it would have jeopardized over 5,000 jobs, a good number in your bloody writing.
Okay, gentlemen, a question for me, and I don't want civility, but I want more clear-cut discussion. Are you in favor of raising the minimum wage, yes or no?
I'm in favor of what the leader of our party says right now. He's reviewing the situation. The NDP bring the same issue up. Like, tell me how many jobs it's going to create, Jack. I don't think one job.
Okay. Are you in favor of raising the minimum wage?
Yes, I'm in favor of raising the minimum wage because it will generate employment also. It will strengthen demand. People are going to have some purchasing power.
How much up? One back up.
Yes.
Okay, next question. What do you think of the NDP legislation, which Skelly suggests, to legislate jobs, kind of security for jobs, so that people can't fire employees? Is that a good thing?
Jack, absolute nonsense. Skelly's whole program on jobs, you'd think he was in China or Yugoslavia. This province is working well. We've presented some things to this province. Expo has got a positive thing happening here. Jobs are increasing faster in this province than any other province in Canada, and you're going to prove that on election day when we win the big majority, most of them workers from his unions.
Should teachers have the right to strike?
Well, let me deal with the job security question. If we have the Boer-Alaskan doctrine in legislation, we wouldn't have an IWA strike, which is causing a tremendous amount of harm to the people on strike in this province.
You think jobs in the bargaining unit should be guaranteed by legislation except for technological change?
Yes, I believe in the Boer-Alaskan doctrine of job security.
These people are actually promising a guaranteed job, schooling and training to all young people. Is that just usual NDP pie in the sky?
Jack, it's just so far out, it's unbelievable. I can't believe that somebody like Art Kube can really believe this stuff that he's saying.
Well, I tell you, I not only believe it, but I think it's practical, it's necessary, because we want to provide the young people of this province a future where they have employment opportunity, where they can deal with the problems
And do you know what they want to do as well, John? They want to scrap the Compensation Stabilization Board and take restraint off civil servants' wages. Would you restrain civil servants' wages?
I would keep it the way it is. They wanted to do that last time, Jack. It cost them the election. This time it's going to cost them even more seats. They're going to be such a small opposition when this election's over. They might start to realize themselves that they're not serving the workers of this province.
The CSP program has been so counterproductive to the economy of this province because it created a psychology of fear where people stopped spending, where employment was reduced. The CSP hasn't worked then, it's not working now.
Okay.
And if you want to remove the psychology of fear, you better start removing the CSP.
Trouble with the economy is we're in a bad shape. We can't afford all this pie in the sky,
Jack,
can we?
one of the problems that the NDP have, and Art Kube's proven it here today, they can't stop and listen for 1 second. They've got to interrupt all the time.
Okay, calls to these two gentlemen, Kube and, what's your name again? Reynolds, after the break. A word of caution, I'm delighted with the evening telephone callers, but forget the good evenings, how are you, can I speak to this and that and the next thing. Come out with your question. You know, time is precious and costs a lot of money. This is a call from Fort St. John. Go ahead, please.
Hello, on Mr. Kube's remark on the job security, why shouldn't a company be allowed to hire and fire when is necessary?
In other words, contracting out. Your husband must be a trucker or something?
My husband works for Canfor. He's an IWA member.
Okay, and does he want to get back to work?
Yes, he wants to get back
Hold
to
on.
Well, the thing is that I have said that if the government would have in legislation the sort of philosophy of the late Chief Justice, there wouldn't be a strike, because the employer would have to sit down with the IWA and negotiate the contracting out. If not, it would go to arbitration.
Should employers be able to contract out when they want to if it's cheaper than using the people in the bargaining unit?
Jack, the employer should have the right to do things. In this situation, the IWA, we've got a situation right now where they're negotiating with the Premier sitting in the middle, and I don't think there's any benefit for us sitting here trying to interfere with that situation.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's you, sir.
Yes, I'd like to say that I believe in what Mr. Kube has been saying, and also I think that if Mr. Vander Zalm does get elected, and it appears now, judging by what you say, that he probably will be, that we won't be BCers anymore. We'll be Vander's lambs being led to slaughter.
Vander's lambs being led to slaughter. That's not bad, is it? You like it. Go ahead, please.
I'd like some further input on Mr. Kube regarding the minimum wage question. Now, his leader, Mr. Skelly, says that Saskatchewan has a higher minimum wage than BC. Saskatchewan has a lower unemployment rate. We better raise our minimum wage. Well, that's economic nonsense. There's reams of studies to prove the contrary, that it actually raises the unemployment rate and puts the same amount of money in fewer pockets. And that, I don't think, is very good policy.
Well, I don't think that there's any for every study you show me, I can show you about 2 studies which say there's no relationship between the minimum wage and unemployment.
John, what do you say?
Well, it's nonsense. I can show him 2 for his one. It's a political argument because of every election, like
Go
capital
ahead,
punishment
please.
and abortion, Jack.
About abortion. Vander Zalm's not very keen on abortion, is he?
Jack, he said what has to be said in this country. It's a
What's
federal
that?
law. His position personally is that he's not in favor of abortion. There's a federal law that he, as the Premier of this province, must administer.
Hey, what do you think of this business about paying your property taxes to the religious institution of your choice for schooling? That's one of his.
Bring it before the legislature, Jack. That'll come up before our caucus, I'm
Are you
sure.
for it or against it?
No, I think the system we've got right now is fine.
Are you for it
No,
or
I
against
am a
it?
public education supporter.
Thank you. Next one. Go ahead, please.
Me?
That's you, ma'am.
Hi. In regards to Expo generating the economy in BC, a lot of that job was done non-union, and those people were from Alberta. My boyfriend worked on the site for 15 months, and I know that. I don't know the actual percentage. Perhaps Mr. Kube does. But it just enabled people like Kirchhoff to win all the big contracts in this province, and he brings the boys in from Alberta. None of that money stays in BC.
What do you say to that, John? That's a criticism.
Jack, my figures are, I think it's less than 15% of those jobs were non-union on the Expo site. Union and non-union workers worked very hard in this province to build a great World's Fair, probably the best one we've seen in the last 60 years.
You would like to ban non-union work from all government jobs, wouldn't you?
No, I didn't say that. I said there should be a fair wage provision in the public tendering contract. I have never said that non-union couldn't work on government jobs, but
The
there has to
NDP
be a
did,
fair...
no last.
No, the NDP didn't. The NDP policy is very clear. It's one of a fair wage provision in the public tendering process. That's what it is.
When the NDP was in,
No.
only union firms got jobs with the government.
Well, I would suggest
we
to
had to
you there
change
was
that.
a fair wage provision under the wacky Bennett government.
No, but
which was
John
taken
is
away
right.
by
When the NDP
Socrates.
got in, you had to be a union-certified person to get jobs on the highways.
That's right.
You had to sign an agreement, that's all, Jack.
That's factually, well, that's the same thing. Surely are. Go ahead, please. Oh, and I've done that one. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
That's you.
Oh, thank you. Mr. John Reynolds, are you a supporter of the President Socrates?
Yes, I am.
Well, I'm new into the province. I've been here about 2 years, and I've been watching a lot of these debates on TV and the newspapers and radio, and I've got the sneaking suspicion that a lot of the Socrates who are representing the people are under a few delusions that they represent the people.
Well, be specific, please. I might say that about any political party.
A lot of political forces seem to tell people that vote for us, and we will make the best choices for you.
Well, that's
and
what
unfortunately,
happens.
when I'm hungry, and I'm looking for a warm, reasonable place to rent or stay, this is not always true.
Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I can't get my teeth into that one. You, of course, were a federal conservative.
Yes.
And at one time you flirted with the separatists.
No.
What? Western
Federal
Canada
Tory?
separatists?
No, Jack. You remember we had to go with that a long
We
time
had,
ago.
and I accused you of, somebody said you would have taken $100,000 to lead them.
No way.
That's not true.
That's not true.
My memory is totally faulty.
Your memory's correct about the fact we debated it.
Webster's fabulous memory is faulty, and it's for you, of course. You've still got the Kelowna Accord bitterness hanging over your head, and the solidarity. I like to be equally nasty. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, from Alberni.
Yes, good evening. Just a comment to Mr. Reynolds. There's been a lot of attention paid towards charisma on behalf of your leader, Mr. Vander Zem. Mr. Reynolds, I find you, in this interview, in your opening remarks, to be very arrogant and, quite frankly, very rude to Mr. Kube, and I think you should avoid that if you want to be elected. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad they said he was from Alberni.
You didn't think he was rude, did you?
Oh, no, listen, I like the
No,
debate.
you used to
I
it.
was the one who got interrupted.
Correct. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Reynolds is not arrogant. He talks with substance. Two questions for you boys. One is what your position is on the bureaucratic nightmare at WCB, and the other is your positions on capital punishment.
Okay.
Capital punishment is not an issue in this election.
Let me deal with the question of WCB.
Briefly.
I think that the service of the WCB should go back to the 1983 level. I think that the survivor benefits and the survivor should be again indexed as they were before, and I think there should be a Royal Commission to look into the question of WCB to make sure it operates to the benefit of workers and make sure that the work environment is safe.
John?
I don't believe in royal commissions, Jack, but I certainly think a committee of the legislature, we should start using our committees more. The Premier said that's going to happen. That should look into the WCB. There needs to be changes there. We all agree on that.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack. I'd like this question to both of the men. I'd like to know if they have ever tried to live or offer the minimum wage. That's when your husband was a union worker and still is, but he hasn't worked for a year and a half. And if they've ever tried to live on $4 an hour with the assistants helping you, it is very hard. I'd like to see, some of them do it. So I said, my name for Mr. Bill Vanderslam is Vanderslammer Dammer, because he's sure going to do it to us.
Thank you. Don't need anything on that one. Go ahead, please. Hello.
Hello.
That's you, sir.
Yeah, this question is directed to Mr. Reynolds.
Yes?
I would, I believe that people should be elected on their merits. And I would like to know what exactly he has done personally as a government member or the social credit government has done for the disabled, the pensioners, the unemployed, and low-income people of British Columbia.
Just keep it the disabled, the pensioners, the unemployed, and low-income people of British Columbia.
Jack, I think we've done a lot in this province. There's been tough times, not only in British Columbia, but around the world in the last few years. We've done exciting things in this province. We're changing the province. And, these things don't happen overnight. Things could always be better. And I think we care as much as anybody else. The NDP can talk about how they care about this and how they care about that. We care as much about these people who are unfortunate and need our help. And if we turn this economy around, and it is turning around, they will get better treatment than they get anywhere else.
Is the economy turning around?
No, the economy isn't turning around. I don't know what's going to happen when Expo is finished, but I haven't done anything for the disabled and the people on public assistance for the 4 years. They have frozen these rates, and I tell you, in many instances, they even reduced the rates which were paid.
Gentlemen, I thank you for putting up with me.
Jack, thank you.
John Reynolds, running in Vancouver-Howe Sound, West Vancouver-Howe Sound, and Art Kube, tilting against the charismatic leader of Social Credit Party. You haven't got a hope, Art, have you?
Well, Jack, stranger things have happened.
I'll be back with a couple of new boys, real new boys to provincial politics. Charming, delightful fellas after the break. That's what we'll do.
Okay. Give another one. Get another one.
Cheap beer, abortion, 500,000 new jobs. Red
Conflict of
carpet for
interest.
business, conflict of interest. Skytrain to Richmond and Equipment. Gotta have it.
You got to put the SkyTrain.
Restraint was a mistake after all. Replace of Carla. No raising of taxes. Casinos and gambling. A number of people have phoned and said, why don't you have all the candidates and all the ridings on at the same time? One, because of the lack of cooperation from some social creditors, it's very difficult. So you're going to have a mismatch just now, but it should be a fascinating mismatch. On my left is Doug Sandberg, who is an ex-alderman in Richmond.
Right.
He's a research chemist. He's Ministry of Environment. How old are you?
38.
How long have you been in politics?
Local politics, 4 years. Community involvement, 15.
And you've been an NDPer since you were a small child in small pants.
I've been an NDPer since I was big enough to think.
So this is Doug Sandberg. And here we have one of the really new boys, with whom I have dealt professionally on a number of occasions as a reporter, as he was involved in some of the brightest criminal trials in British Columbia. And his name is Bob Gardner. Robert J. is it?
Robert C.
Robert Gardner. And you know, I always remember you acting for Wendy King in the Wendy King case.
Everybody remembers that.
Well, you know. And the other thing I remember is how you got $45,000 in damages and your old Audi, the lemon, back again when you sued them and won.
Yeah, but that was me as a litigant, Jack.
I'm merely putting it in his colour so people might remember who you are.
Okay.
In other words, acting as your own lawyer, in this case, you did very well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
How long have you been a member of Social Credit?
15 years.
I didn't suspect that.
No, when you were talking to me, I was a closet member, Jack.
A closet member. What made you come out of the closet, if I may use that expression?
Van der Zam.
Van der Zam.
Van der Zam's the magic.
All right. What made you run for the first time provincially?
Van der Zam's the magic. I think the man, from the time he announced the election, talking about renewal of the mess created by the same government that he was part of. Now we're talking fresh start to clean up the same mess with the same old people, the same ones that were around, with the second string coming in now as well.
Second string?
And with the same policies. I mean, if that isn't enough initiative to run in a provincial election against the man, I can't think of what would be.
Well, I'm not the same old people. The whole reason why people like me are running is because we need a fresh face. We need fresh people making the decisions, and I think that's the whole reason why Van der Zam wants us to run.
Well, is there any area where you, let me be quite brutal with you, witness, do you in fact have any experience in the political background of British Columbia?
Absolutely none, and I don't think you need any experience. In fact, career politicians make me sick. I think really, to be qualified to run this government, you should prove yourself in something else first. not be a career politician like a permanent mayor or a permanent alderman or whatever. And quite frankly, I think that I'm qualified.
You're convinced that your innate training and your skills and intelligence, you can tackle any complicated issue and understand it by Monday morning court time?
I have no problem at all with that in politics. It's not difficult. You just need sense and a logical approach.
Well, you didn't really tell me what you thought of Van der Zalm. You said he's just renewal, that's all he is. Do you think his is a phony campaign without any platform? Said he putting words in your mouth?
Exactly that. He has a false facade that I think is going to be shattered in the very near future. We got his first major, you said the major issue was the settlement in the forestry industry. The major issue is the one gamble he's taken on forestry is starting to fall apart right now with the U.S. lumber embargo and the tariffs that may be levied. He could have already cost this province 8% extra tariff in terms of the lumber industry. The one thing he's done, he will not say another thing about what else he's going to do. The man could be loose cannon on the deck.
I'll give you a little tip. You should jump in now and say, settle the BCGEU strike.
Yes.
He's going to settle a nursery strike.
He may.
In both cases, Jackie was the employer. He was the guy on the other side of the table with the bag of money, as you said earlier.
The only facade that's false, that's been proved to be false, is Skelly's. It's already cracked. Van der Zalm has been looked at. He's been under the scrutiny of the microscope for the last 3 months. I don't see any cracking at all.
If you're talking about
charisma, had nothing to say for the last 3 months except charisma.
I mean, I can get up and make a speech anywhere, anytime, on anything, even if I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, but I think he's going to settle this.
All right, now I want to go to your area of expertise, the law. What about the administration of justice in this province? I'm not talking about decisions in court, but are we well served by the Attorney General and the facilities?
Well, if I was elected in Vancouver Centre, there's one thing which crosses my mind right away, Jack, and that is that we have a large, almost empty courthouse, that great glass edifice downtown that stands there. It's not used enough. There are 2-year backlogs of court cases. There are people who can't get their litigation on. They have to settle. They settle for bad results. They can't get a judge.
Are you attacking the Ericsson NDP building?
Here we have every candidate coming out and listing all the faults of the government, even the second string.
I'm not attacking the building. I'm attacking the system. It should be open at night. We should have night court.
Gardner says, you're talking about county court judges?
I'm talking about judges.
Supreme Court judges?
Why can't people go to court when they're not having to interfere with their work? Why can't we have a shift system?
You mean for Supreme Court judges?
I don't think they'd object to it. I think we need more judges, but we need to serve the people.
That's not a bad idea, is
it? We've had a great list from just about all of these new second-string people that have come along of the things that the government did wrong, and maybe Van der Zalm will do it better, but that's not Van der Zalm's policy. That's this gentleman's policy.
Well, that's
it's true on the whole system. Van der Zalm doesn't have the policies. He won't talk about it. But trust me. We in the NDP have laid out a whole series of policies that guarantee employment for youth, that guarantee jobs and an increase in your chances of education and health care. No, it's what the NDP platform is all about.
In the NDP, you have a list of policies and you stick rigidly to them. Every candidate mouths
them. We have policies. Yes. What are your policies?
Well, I gave you an example.
Do you have any more?
Yes, well, you dream one up. At least I'm thinking.
I'll tell you about the fact that in the Youth Guarantee Program, we could guarantee programs in Richmond to give jobs to the unemployed. You know that in every second house in Richmond, there's kids that can't get an education or a decent job?
Well, now, here's a man who knows the seamy side of life from his career. Would you shake up the Attorney General's department and get these things done, get trials on quicker? Should we have more legal aid?
Jack, is this going to be instant social credit policy? Or
No.
Well, you know, that's the point.
Trying to keep it going.
You come out with that, but that's an example. We want people in there who can think for themselves, not just mouth a script.
You are a dyed-in-the-wool free enterpriser.
I'm an absolute free enterpriser, yes.
Dyed-in-the-wool. Live or die by your own skills.
Yes.
Do we pamper people too much with all these allowances and low rental housing?
No, I think you know this as well, because I've acted for the underprivileged. I think there's certainly a very definite right to people who are underprivileged to have advantages.
Good. What about Richmond? Give me one word on Richmond.
We have a lot of problems in Richmond.
Magnificent municipality.
It is the most beautiful place to live in the Lower Mainland. It's been threatened by Van der Zalm already by special enterprise zones at the airport that could shatter our existing small businesses in Richmond. If we don't settle something in the Indian negotiations, if we don't negotiate, our fishermen could end up losing half the fish the way they did in Washington State.
They would settle the Indian land claims tomorrow.
We would negotiate. negotiate the Indian land claims tomorrow. Which
I'm
is
going
a
to the phones
completely
now.
different
Go on.
thing.
You give the case away tomorrow.
You won't. In the U.S., the courts have given it away. 50% of the fisheries given away. We can't even tell whether you people are going to negotiate, which was the platform yesterday, or not negotiate, which was the one a week ago. We'd like to know where you stand. Everybody in BC.
Robert, on Indian land claims, the social credit line is feds must pay everything.
Well, that's the line at the moment, I agree.
Okay, I'm going to try the phones with Bob Gardner. Bob's a little bit of a disadvantage tonight, because you've been around a long while in the party. You're well.
I have not been around
Yes,
the
yes.
party. I
Hold
work
on,
for a
please.
living, I'm afraid.
Let's get some phone calls after the break. Robert Gardner, lawyer, social creditor, 15 years, running in Vancouver Centre against Barnes and Harcourt. Who's your running mate?
My running mate is
Murchie.
Murchie Tees.
Murchie Tees.
Yeah.
He's going to make a cup of tea here tomorrow night. And Mr. Sandberg, ex-alderman in Richmond, old-time NDP. How old are you, by the way?
38, yes.
How old are you, Bob?
45.
God, you don't look a day more than 44. Go ahead.
Yeah, my comment or question is to Mr. Gardner. 10 years ago, the Socreds roughly 10 years ago, the Socreds got elected screaming and ranting and gnashing their teeth about the $1 billion deficit. The current provincial debt stands at $19.6 billion, I believe. That's an increase of almost 2,000%. And I'm beginning to see that Mr. Vanderscam and his buddies are trying to pull a fast one on the people of BC. Does either candidate have any comment on that?
Well, let me first of all correct your figures. 19.6 is correct for the overall debt. The current debt in borrowings by the Bennett government since the resource economy began to die is about $5.9 billion.
Okay, so that's an increase.
Well, whatever the percentage
50%.
is. We're down $900 million this year right now.
Sorry.
Jack,
Have you any comment on that, Robert, first?
Yes, I have. You cannot blame the government for a bad economy. The economy the last 2 years has been terrible. What you can do is give credit to a government that's put Expo in, that at least has tried to keep the jobs of the people in this province.
And don't forget, go on.
1983, the government came in on a platform of stability, immediately passed the restraint bill, which not only cut all government services, cut money going back to people, but it also raised the cost of government. And taxes were raised. People had to pay more out. And no other government has tried that, raising taxes and cutting services at the same time, and nobody's tried it since because it's been a disaster and we've had a social credit recession in BC.
Well, that's been lifted now, I gather. They say it's lifted. It appears to be lifted, but I don't know where the money's going to come from. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Jack.
Yeah.
You know, this Mr. Vanderzam looks like a nice guy and everything, but I don't think he's the right kind of boy for the job.
Why not?
Who is the right man is Jimmy Patterson. And I'd like to see Mr. Patterson, and I hope he's listening right now, to give back a little bit of what he's taken out of BC. That's all I wanted to say.
How can you say that? Patterson has put an awful lot into BC.
Jimmy wouldn't run. It's not a job for Jimmy Patterson, let me tell you. I know Jimmy quite well. I used to work for him for years. He's a great businessman, but that would drive him crazy.
He'd be honest enough to say what he stood for, at least.
Go ahead, please.
Well, I'd just like to say to Mr. Sandberg and the NDP in general that I think that they are too pro-union, and that's why they're going to lose this next election. The majority of the workforce in British Columbia is unorganized, and I think you guys are just scaring them away. That's the problem.
You won't face reality about wages, will you?
Certainly we will. In Richmond, we have a particularly good economy in the small business sector, and we've already got that being threatened by Vanderzam's airport special enterprise zone.
I'm worried about 500,000 jobs.
I'm just as worried about the small businessman who works 12, 15 hours a day as I am about the unionized employee and the non-unionized employee. None of them benefit from a lower or no minimum wage.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Webster. I don't know about Mr. Vanderzam threatening the small businessman in Richmond. I am a Richmond resident. I'm a member of the Teamsters Union. Mr. Vanderzam has invested $12 million of his own hard-earned money in Fantasy Gardens, which is a fantastic place to look at, and it's just a beautiful spot, which used to be a wasteland. We have two local rags out here, the Richmond Times and the Richmond Review. And Alderman Steeves, who is NDP, writes in the rag repeatedly about Mr. Vanderzam wanting to take 8 or 9 acres out of the Land Reserve Act. after he himself took out 25 acres.
I don't know about what any deals that Steve's had in land, and I'm not about to go into it. Stick to the facts we know.
Well, could I continue 1 second?
Yes.
I think it's very improper of you tonight having people like Mr. Kube on against a very highly successful businessman like Mr. Reynolds, who makes a man just look like an absolute idiot that he is.
It depends which side of the fence you're on. Many people will think that Kube wiped the floor with
Well,
Reynolds.
what he said, I'm a member of the Teamsters Union.
Well, I mean, what kind of qualification is that as a political observer?
Well, I'm voting social credit.
Is that Bill on the phone?
No.
And furthermore, I'll pick my own guests, thank you very much, and I shall now abruptly and not rudely cut you off. You gotta have a little fun. Go ahead, please.
Yes. In spite of the fact that you are on the Socrates side, Mr. Webster.
Nonsense. Nonsense.
The NDP are going to win, and I'll tell you why. Because the people who vote for the NDP are intelligent. They don't go criticizing and saying that Skelly is falling apart because he probably has asthma and runs out of breath. I mean, ridiculous. Did anybody criticize Bill Bennett? Did you, Mr. Webster?
Yes, I did.
Criticize Bill Bennett when he used to make his speeches?
Yes, I did.
I never heard you, my dear.
Jack, I think the point is made.
But I have not taken advantage of the unfortunate anxiety attacks that Mr. Skelly had.
I'm showing you, I'll show you my tongue too, Mr. Webster.
I think the point is important in Richmond that the voters are an intelligent bunch, and they're going to look at what the NDP offers and what social credit is jumping at and throwing out announcements of, and I think that there's a very good chance that we can beat Bill Vanderzam.
My day has been spoiled altogether, Robert. That's the first time I've been called a social creditor. I've been a reporter on the air for
Good luck, Doug Sandberg.
I thought you were a socialist deep down.
I am a
Deep down.
small L liberal, slightly to the left, except some days when I move slightly to the right. I am a true non-partisan.
You're not a liberal, Webster.
You mind your own business. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
This is directed at the NDP candidate.
His name is Sandberg, and he thinks he can beat Vanderzam.
Mr. Sandberg.
Yes.
What scares me is I agree with you what you said about Vanderzam. I mean, he scares the hell out of me. He says, trust me, he's got nothing to offer, and I've yet to trust a politician. I've not seen a politician that promises anything and keeps the promises afterwards. But what scares me more is the NDP. If the NDP gets into government, I remember quite well how they went on a spending spree of a budget, of a surplus fund that we had that they went through in 2 years. There was nothing left when they finished with it.
Okay, they're afraid of the NDP. Let's put it to you, Bob. I've got to bring you in. Are you afraid of the NDP going hog wild with what borrowings and finances they can get their hands on?
Well, I don't think they're good fiscal handlers. I think they've proved that time and time again. They have all these policies which sound great. They want to look after everybody, but you have to make some decisions. You have to decide who you're going to look after and where you're going to spend your money.
Right, I think that's happened. I think I get a shot at this one too, Jack.
Sure.
You know, we just had the figure of $19.6 billion that the social credit have put us in debt over the last 11 years.
You're advocating a great
$19.6 billion when that debt wasn't there in '75, and the debt hasn't gone. The debt hasn't gone back to the people that paid the services. The debt has gone into paying off $250 million loans that BC Rail made to put in Northeast Coal. We've had massive projects on a grand, fantastic failure scale like Northeast Coal and Brick. Do you remember any of those projects, Fiscal Manager? Do you remember Brick, Fiscal Manager?
Give a chance.
Wasn't too successful, was it?
Come on now, come on now.
Give me a chance.
You had yours and I took mine. I think it's the next call.
Carry on. No, it isn't.
Your own comments indicate that you're going to increase the debt by about 3 times.
Don't be silly.
So don't...
a project for youth guarantee throughout the province where we look area by area at what is needed,
one of
whether
50
it's
projects.
on-the-job training or what it is, that would cost less than 1/10 of one section of highway that you
Okay, enough point. Let's go ahead, please, from Yale.
Yes.
That's you.
It's me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to say that I think the NDP should hang in there, that obviously that Vanderzam is a new face with a new slant, but a lot of us out here still remember the old Vanderzam. And the youth projects, I think if we're going to spend the money anyway, we're going to be in debt no matter what we do. Let's put the youth to work.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of borrowing anyway just now, even if we are 900 million down this year.
That's right.
And you are too. You'd have to. If you're in power tomorrow, you got to borrow. Or you can't maintain present services. Gentlemen, I want to compliment you, and I really mean it sincerely, being two of the citizens of British Columbia who've got guts enough to run for a political party, right, wrong, or maybe.
Thank you,
And
Jack.
my thanks to you, Robert Gardner, Vancouver Centre Social Credit candidate, and Doug Sandberg, Richmond candidate for the NDP. Next, I'm going to go to... Good show. Hey, do that again. Do that again. Come on, shake hands. See that? Nice touch. Next, Webster free-for-all on the election or whatever. And I'll give you my opinions after the break. I'm beginning to settle into this 5 o'clock time slot, and if I can make a little personal confession, my physiognomy has been thoroughly out of whack from being a morning person up at 5:30. I'm now an afternoon person. I'm telling you, it's like a different world, but I'm beginning to settle in. I'm actually sleeping now till nearly 6:45 in the morning. Now, Webster free-for-all. Where am I going, Jeanette? Go ahead, please.
Yes, I just want to make one comment. Before the NDP gets one vote from me, I really do wish they would learn some manners, because that's an outward, of what we are, and I can't imagine something like that representing me. Thanks, Jack.
What do you mean? Who's she mad at, Kube?
I'm mad at both of the candidates for the NDP, Kube and, what was his
Kube
name,
and
Sandberg?
Sandberg.
Or whatever his name was.
Okay, you're mad
But
at
I mean,
them.
they're
Well, in
all...
that case, you must be mad at me. I tend to be a little...
No, of course. Now, how could I be mad at you? But no, I mean, just the way they talk and the way they behave, to me, it's just not something I want representing me.
Okay, love. Thanks very much. Bye. All the best. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack. Yes, I have 2 points to make. One point is that I come from a strong NDP background. I've never voted other than NDP. And I'm finding it very difficult to bring myself to vote for a guy like Bob Skelly.
Why?
Because he's shown a lack of competence as a leader. He's going through these nervous attacks. I'm really finding it difficult to vote. For the first time in my life, I'm not going to vote NDP because of that.
Well, now, I recognize your right to vote, but it's a kind of slim reason, isn't it?
Well, you want somebody to represent the province that...
Now, as you want somebody who can step up like Van der Zam and just go hell for leather.
Basically, although I don't think I'll ever vote social credit, but which brings me to my next point, if I can go on to that now.
Sure.
And that is that, especially in reference to the first 2 candidates you had on, and that Art Kube and Reynolds, that Socret.
Right.
There's so extreme polarity. It's hard for a guy like me and you, like middle-of-the-road liberals, to find a right person to vote for.
Well, that's why I put them on, because they were such opposites.
Yeah, but what's a guy like me and you? People who are small liberals, like small L liberals, who can we vote for in this election? I think I'm going to have to spoil my vote and vote Rhino.
There's no Rhino this time round.
Well.
Thanks anyway. Vote for... Never mind. Go ahead, please.
Hi, it was just in response to one of the previous callers when she had suggested that only social credit throw political punches, but I would just want to bring to her attention that last week it was Mr. Skelly who unfortunately threw one of the first political punches with his tulip comment, which was totally brash, I think, on his part, and it was probably a very, very uncalled for comment. So just to maybe get her facts straight and to remind her that not only do the social credit, but the NDP as well, they know how to play political hardball as well.
Yeah, the tulip bulb statement was, without the slightest doubt, one of the stupidest things I've ever had in a political campaign in my life.
Oh, it certainly was, and I'm happy that Mr. Van der Zam was courageous enough to say that no offense was
Never
taken
mind.
or anything, and I think that
Skelly was courageous enough to apologize too.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay, love, that's enough of that. Can't go on forever. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Jack.
Yes.
Nice to see you on at 5 o'clock. I can watch you after work.
Well, that's pleasant to hear.
My point is...
At least 3 other people are watching.
Pardon me?
At least 3 other people are watching.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. My point is, Jack, that the last 2 nights you had the small fish, basically, of both parties on. I would suggest with your pull and your connections, you would be able to get Mr. Vanderzam and Mr. Skelly on one of your shows for a full
I have,
hour.
just one moment, please. I went after Skelly with a bit of a hatchet, not Skelly, Vanderzam at Whistler, and I've had Vanderzam on twice since, the day that it was dropped, and for an hour on my first program. Don't you remember that occasion?
I missed that one, Jack,
well, if you'd listen to me for a minute, he's to be here at 5 o'clock. I've got a brand new, 4:30, I've got a brand new program at 5 o'clock. He turns up at 7 minutes after 5, and I committed a boo-boo and said a nasty word live on camera. And I did 60 minutes with him that night. Get home earlier and don't miss the program.
That may be true, but you haven't had both of them on the same time.
Well, they won't come on the same time. Skelly, Vanderzam will not debate Skelly.
Thank you, Jack.
I will have Vanderzam on at the end of the campaign, and I also will have Skelly on separately at the end of the campaign. These people who miss some programs, we should ban them from watching altogether. You got to watch every night or watch it all. Go ahead, please.
Hello. I'm really confused as to who to vote for.
That's for whom to vote, yes?
As the NDP says, they're going to give a job to everyone.
They're going to guarantee funding for everyone up to their early 20s, a job, a schooling and training, which really is a bit pie in the sky. But then again, Grace McCarthy and Vanderzam came out the other day and said 500,000 new jobs by 2000, and that was palpable nonsense.
Well, as a suggestion for the NDP campaign, I feel that we should rerun some of the social credit members' haughty answers to most of the questions on interviews during their term in office, and then have them answer to that.
Good idea, ma'am, but a little bit technically difficult. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my comment is the kind of advertising that the NDP is doing, just slamming, the opposition, rather than just getting on with what their policies are. I'm a little bored with, that kind of thing. Why don't people just say what their policies are and get on with it, rather than going through things in the past, what has happened?
It doesn't sell the right impressions. All these boys in the back room are very skilled indeed. Personally, I thought the social credit one about how we're going to pay for Expo with lottery money was just garbage, and that was Vanderzam.
I think so too.
Absolute garbage.
Right.
And I don't like this NDP one. I think it's stupid.
I agree.
Thanks, ma'am. But agreed on what's stupid anyway. That's something. Letters are getting smaller every year on these phones. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Good afternoon, Jack. I'm just calling. First of all, I'd like to compliment the new young social creditor there. What was his last name? Robert?
Bobby Gardner. We call him High Boots Bob.
No, I was really impressed with him, with the way that he sort of stood back and let Mr. Sandberg go on and rant and rave for a while there. And I was quite impressed with that. But on to my main point. I'm currently a university student here in Vancouver. As a matter of fact, right now I'm taking time off. I'm working 2 jobs. Because there's just no money there for me to go to school.
What 2 jobs have you got?
I've got a couple of jobs. They're fairly good jobs with the education I have right now. I'm in the 3rd year at a major university.
And
but the thing is, I'm a social creditor, and I'm finding it increasingly hard to vote for the social credit because of their policies with regarding education.
Well, they're restraint kids. Vanderzam doesn't talk much about money for education. And when he was education minister, he was the tough guy.
That's right. And, I can see how hard it was then and this and that. But, you can forget about all these talk with government creating job subsidies and increasing welfare and helping with unemployment, because education, when are they going to get it to their heads that education is the best investment that you can make? Doesn't matter if it's a province or a country or anything.
Gives me a cue to tell you that I'm going to do a special forum on education, probably on Monday the 13th, just to spell out the state of our educational institutes as they are now. Because, as you know, they've been starved for money for a while, although there was a time when they had to be thinned out, Too much pork in the barrel. And I'll be back after the break. Special message to Social Credit Headquarters in Richmond. I got a phone call today from somebody from an outfit called Office Automation, asking me deadly serious if my program tomorrow, which is Thursday, isn't it, was going to have political overtones. Social Credit are keeping really up to date. Yes, I will have political overtones tomorrow. And I've got some fairly big guns screaming at each other at 5 p.m. precisely. Stay tuned for the news.